Hey, what is going on? It is 12 noon on Friday, which means it's time for this week's episode of State of Real Estate. My name is John Christman. The show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate, and we're here every single Friday at 12 noon Eastern time to help you mastermind or grow your real estate business. And what we're talking about today is pricing property to sell. So we've done episodes previously, a lot of episodes about working with sellers, listings, especially recently we've gone through, talked about a bunch of those things. But one of the things that is probably the biggest way to shoot yourself in the foot as a listing agent working for a seller is pricing a property too high. And you know, this is a tough conversation sometimes because a lot of buyers, or not buyers, sellers, a lot of sellers will have the philosophy that, well, let me go ahead and just list it for a high price because people are going to negotiate me down. What we're going to be talking about today is how that's actually the opposite of what actually happens, and how pricing that property too high is not just you and your client both shooting yourself in the feet, making your job a lot more difficult, making their job of getting the actual property sold much more difficult because they're trying to do it at an unrealistic price that is at the top of the price point. So we're going to break down a lot of the specifics. So if you already understand why this doesn't make sense, let me ask you this: can you communicate it to your clients? Because it's one thing if we as the real estate professional understand it. We're the professional. We're expected to understand this stuff. But certain things, especially when our client has a misunderstanding, when a seller has a misunderstanding of the best way to get the highest and best price for their property, we have to correct that misunderstanding. Otherwise, that's going to make our job difficult, and it's usually going to result in unsatisfied clients. So we don't want that to happen, because this is just going to make working with sellers a nightmare and you won't want to work with them. That's not the case. Working with sellers can be so great. It is a lot more efficient than working with buyers. There's a lot more capability to grow your business exponentially through sellers, but this is one of the main things that you'll probably butt heads with on a lot of sellers unless you know how to properly explain this to them. And that's what we're going to be breaking down today, what the simple reasoning is behind the idea of pricing a property at a little bit lower price, and also how the market plays into this as well, because you know, right now some of the things that I'm going to say aren't going to apply in a different market. You know, right now we're in a, definitely at least in the Tampa Bay area, a very heavy seller's market where it's very weighted advantage and the scales are leaning on the seller side. And so that makes this strategy even more important. But it's also extremely important on the flip side as well when we have a buyer's market. So really important if you want to work with sellers, pricing a property to sell. You understand this, it's going to make it so much easier for you to win over seller clients and win over listings. And like I said, listings are the path to exponentially growing your business. So why wouldn't you want listings? So stick with us. We've got a great show for you today. I'm John Christmo. You're watching State of Real Estate.
You are watching
State of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern time. Grow your real estate business. You're watching State of Real Estate. Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of State of Real Estate. My name is John Christman. The show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. We're here every Friday, 12 noon Eastern time. If you're not yet subscribed, hit that bell icon so you get notifications whenever it is that we've got new content for you. And if you like today's episode, make sure you hit that thumbs up icon so that way we know what videos to do more content on. What content to do more videos on, so that way we can help you with your specific needs to help you grow your real estate business. Because at the end of the day, I'm not up here doing this live stream for me. Yeah, I enjoy it, but the part that I enjoy is helping you. The part that I enjoy is helping our students achieve their dream real estate career. That's our mission here at the Tampa School of Real Estate, and that's what ultimately at the end of the day we're trying to do. So let's talk about pricing to sell. Now, imagine you're the buyer. Put yourself in the buyer's shoes. You know, this helps out a lot whenever you're trying to better understand a situation, is trying to put yourself in the opposing party's shoes. So imagine you're the buyer. Now, what are you doing as a typical buyer in 2020 or whatever year it is you may be watching this? Well, they're searching online. That almost needs to go unsaid just because that's so obvious, but I would like, if they're just starting out, they've been 99% of what it is that they've done is online. Now, what are they doing online? They're looking. What are they looking at? They're looking at the photos. That's one of the most important things. That's one of the things they're going to look at first. As people are flipping through properties quickly, photos are extremely important, especially that first picture. That first picture, because they might not click through to the second or third or however many pictures it is that you have. They might judge the book by its cover, judge that property by its exterior. So if you don't have a banging first picture on there, they're probably going to pass right over your listing. But that's number one, what they're going to be looking at, the photos. Number two thing it is they're going to be looking at is the price. Photos and price, that is really the top two things. Now, the other thing I will throw up here as well is the area that it's in. So depending on the demand in the area, that maybe affects what we're going to be talking about as well. But again, so putting yourself in the buyer's shoes, if you haven't looked at anything yet, you're spending hours, days, weeks, months, years looking at these online websites, looking at listings that are available, looking at the photos, looking at the price, looking at the area, studying. Now, does every buyer do this? No, absolutely not. And this is definitely a spectrum. It's not they either do due diligence or they don't. It's some won't do any, and some will do all the research there possibly could be and maybe never make a decision because they just get so overwhelmed with all the research it is that they're doing, and then people all in between as well. But every single one of them, when they look at a property online, number one, they're looking at the photos. That's what catches their eye. That's what before they even look at the price, they say, do I want to live here? Then they look at the price. Ooh, I can't afford that. Ooh, that seems a little high. Oh, wow, that seems like a lot for this here. Let's back that up. Again, you're the buyer. You're looking online. You see a photo. You're liking the photo. Like, ooh, look at this property. Now, we just went through the scenario where, oh, wow, that price seems a little high. You look at the first photo. Then let's say you look at the price and you're like, wow, that seems reasonable. Or, wow, that seems kind of low. That's what you want the buyer to be thinking. And your opportunity really to have that is between these two things here. Now, the area that they're usually decided on some sort of area. That's not always the case with buyers, but usually buyers have at least a general idea of maybe a zip code or neighborhood or something like that. So this usually isn't going to be the make it or break it thing. It's these two things that are, the photos and the price. They're already sold on that area. They're already looking in the area. Now they just need to find the perfect house in whatever area it is that they're looking at. And again, they're going to look at the photo, the first photo, because that's the one that's going to come up first, and immediately they're going to compare that to the price. And usually they're taking in this information simultaneously, and it's like a split second that the mind looks at the photo first and makes a judgment on that before it looks at the price. It could be the other way around as well, but it happens so quickly that between that first photo and the price, that is your first impression. The first photo that you have and the price that you have on there, that is your first impression. Now, what type of first impression is going to make somebody want to look further? What type of first impression is going to make somebody want to look at the next photo? Just getting to photo number 2. Well, here's some things that'll guarantee they're not going to go to photo 2. If they're turned off by photo number 1, if they're turned off by that main primary photo, if that one really doesn't sell it, they're not going to look at photo number 2. If the price is high and they've been looking at a lot of properties, they can immediately tell that number 1, they don't like the photo, and number 2, they don't like the price. You're done. You're done. But let's say that they don't like the photo, they're not 100% on the photo, but they look at the price and they say, all right, well, that's kind of what we were looking at here. And now they start looking at photo number 2 and photo number 3, and you're building the interest. And maybe that first photo wasn't the money shot. Maybe that first photo wasn't the one that says, wow, this is the one for us. I mean, you want that first photo to be that because that's going to help more people get to photos 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. But even if your photo number 1 doesn't sell it in and of itself, if the price is competitive, if the price is reasonable, they're going to continue looking at it. They're going to look into it more. Whereas if it's overpriced, they're probably not even going to waste their time looking at the rest of it. If they already don't like the first photo and it's overpriced, you're done. But even if they don't like the photo, if they like the price, they're going to keep looking. And if they like the photo and they like the price, well, now we're cooking. But at least we can get them looking if they at least are okay with the price. So now that we understand this buyer a little bit better, and we're now back in the seller's shoes, if we're the seller here, usually with sellers, they're wanting to list the property for as much as they possibly can. Why? Because people are greedy. Greedy is maybe not the best word for it. Greedy's got such a negative connotation to it, but people not just want money, they need money. They need money for the next house. If we talk about in real estate, the reason why people are greedy, why sellers are greedy, trying to walk away with as much money it is that they have, is because that house is their investment, number one. And here, let's get down to the psychology of the seller, because there's a lot. If you're not familiar with working with sellers, there's a few things you want to understand about what's going on in the seller's mind as to why they might fight you on pricing the property at a lower point, what it is that their reservations are that they already have in their mind. So with a seller, this is probably their largest investment. For most Americans, their largest investment is their home. That's not always the case. Sometimes they have other investments that may be larger, but usually for the average American, their largest investment is their home. And so now we're talking about selling off that largest investment. Now, if you're a real estate investor or you've worked with real estate investors, you might be hard to see a homeowner as an investor. But I guarantee you that every homeowner sees themselves as an investor, because that's why they're buying a home, because it's the smart financial decision, because they don't want to rent, because they would rather make an investment of their living situation as opposed to just paying money that they're never going to get back again. So they absolutely view it as an investment, and it's their largest investment as well. And there might have been false beliefs. There's all kinds of false beliefs that could be formed about what this seller thinks of their value. One of them is just their own bias. They have an emotional attachment to the property. In addition to this being an investment, look, if you're an investor, investors usually are less emotional about properties and more about the numbers, the figures, about whether or not it's profitable. With your home, that's not always the case. You'll have false beliefs, and some of those false beliefs just come from bias of well, this is my home, where it's sentimental. If you've got sentimental attachment to your home, that's understandable. Most people do. But that sentimental attachment isn't worth anything to anybody except for yourself. Now, we'd maybe not explain to the seller like that, but we've got to understand where the seller's coming from, so that way we can massage these ideas into their head. Because if they're operating on these false beliefs, they're going to end up in disappointment. We're the professional here. We're here to help them not buy into these false beliefs, so that way we could save them from themselves. That's literally what it is that we're doing with this here. We're saving them from themselves. And it might not just be their fault. They might also be misinformed. If you haven't noticed, we live in the misinformation age. They used to call it the information age until people realized that anybody could have an opinion, and what people forget about is opinions are just that, opinions. They're not always facts. So there's a lot of misinformation that's out there, whether this is a family member, whether this is a friend, whether it's maybe another realtor that they've talked to that has maybe given them false information. Hey, maybe we could talk about Zillow. Maybe I'm not supposed to say their name here, but I guarantee you, if any of you guys practice real estate and you're familiar with Zillow's estimates, you might have a few words to say yourself about it. I'll let you have your thoughts about that. But whatever case may be, that they find some number somewhere that sometimes you wonder, where do these systems, how do these algorithms even come up with these dollar amounts? But whatever the case may be, there may be misinformation, and it might not be intentional misinformation. Why would a family member tell you, oh, now is not the time to sell? Why would they do that? Well, because they love you and they want what's best for you. And they're pushing what they think is best for you. Because if they're saying, oh no, now isn't the time to sell, well, what are they thinking? They think that prices are going to go up? That could happen, but what if they don't? How do you know that? Again, that's an example of misinformation, of where opinions can be construed as facts. And now you might ask me, well, John, what's going to happen to the market? I don't know. All I'm going to be able to tell you is an opinion. But that being said, my opinion is a professional opinion as opposed to a friend or family member, whoever it is, who is not qualified. So what's extremely important in the misinformation age that we live in, I guarantee you in the history books for the 2020s decades, they're going to refer to those as the misinformation age. Who knows? They might even already be referring to what we've had going on for however many years as the misinformation age instead of just calling it the information age. Because what you have to do is be aware of where this information is coming from. And this is something we want to be aware of for our own personal development as well. When we get these inputs into us of what we should do, of how we should act, of what behaviors are necessary for success in our business, we want to be careful who we're taking that advice from, because it could be misinformation. And misinformation isn't intentional all the time. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's accidental, like our family member saying, oh no, don't sell. And that's maybe just their way of saying, hey, I'm scared. I don't know about doing this. Are you sure you know about doing this? That could be what's going on in their head and why they're feeding you that unintentional misinformation of, oh, now isn't the time to sell. Or, oh, have you heard about this? Or, oh, why don't you do this? Or whatever it is that's out there that could be, again, giving them this idea. One of the other things for misinformation as well is, especially when we're talking about over improvements. So if we talk about maybe somebody that put some improvement into the property, that putting in a swimming pool, for example. Let's say somebody put in a swimming pool, and the swimming pool contractor, the company that was paid to install the swimming pool, they assured the homeowner that, oh, well, you know, swimming pools, they always give you way more than what you spend on them. I mean, this swimming pool, even though you're spending like 50 grand, it's going to give you at least another $100,000 back in property values. Oh yeah, trust me. Now, if that happened, that would definitely be misinformation. And it's clever, I don't know if clever is the right word for it, but it's tricky misinformation because this person seems like they're a professional. But what this person is a professional in is installing pools, not selling houses with pools. See, that's what a realtor does. A realtor is a professional at selling houses with pools, without pools, whatever type of house it is. And what we're also an expert at, not maybe as much of an expert as, say, an actual certified appraiser, but maybe one step below an appraiser, is us as real estate professionals. It's our job to understand property values and help you make the best decisions. And so we want to handle this misinformation with care, because if we just go in there and we just start labeling what their friends and family are saying as misinformation, they're not going to want to do business with us. But what we do want to do is be aware of, hey, what false beliefs is it to have? What is it that I have to overcome? What bias exists? How sentimental are they about this property? Did they get misinformation from past contractors that said, oh, well, they'll get the X amount of dollars for this or X amount of dollars for that, when really they have no qualifications to give that type of opinion? And this is what makes our job difficult, because these false beliefs, what they do is they add on value. Let's say a property that is worth, supposedly worth $300,000. What these false beliefs do is, oh, well, my sentimental bias, that's worth $50,000. And oh, all the misinformation I've been fed on this property, that's worth another $50,000. So you know what I'm thinking? Well, and actually, you know what, on top of that, you know, my friend said, you know, it's such a seller's market right now and homes are selling for so much money. So you know what, let's just tack on another $75,000 on here. So yeah, you know, and this is what a seller is doing. They're maybe not having the conversation as candidly as I am with you right now on this here, but this is basically what's going on in their head. There's so much of the value that they're adding to the property because of their sentimental attachment. There's so much of the value it is that they're adding, possibly due to misinformation. And this isn't always the case. It's not always that they add on $50,000. I'm just giving you an example here of how the property might really be worth this, but how in their head they might be thinking it's worth $475,000. If the property is really worth $300,000, why would they think it's worth $475,000? And you know, you could talk to an agent and they might joke about it. Oh, because they're crazy. Oh, because they. But the reality of this is what's going on inside their head. If we could open up the hood and watch what happens as they have these thoughts that puts together what they think their home is worth, it's these items. So this is what we need to overcome to get us a lot closer back to reality. Because if this house is really worth $300,000, again, let's switch back to our buyer role. Let's get back in our buyer shoes, put our buyer hat on. If we're a buyer and we've been scouring the internet for months, looking at every last property that's available, looking at the photos and looking at the price, you better have some really breathtaking photos if you want to try to get this property to sell for $175,000 more than the other properties this homeowner might be looking at on there. So now, how do we translate this to the seller? How do we figure, well, number one, what we want to do is do fact finding. Fact finding, I believe, is one of the most underutilized concepts in sales, and it actually gets utilized quite a bit. But it's so important because what it does is it allows you to understand your customer, sometimes to a greater degree than they understand themselves, if you're thorough with your fact finding. What are you doing with your fact finding? Due diligence. You know, we just talked about those things that might be mentally blocking, holding a seller back, causing them to have a false belief about what their property is worth. So, how do we figure out what they think the property is worth? Well, that's what we do in fact finding. We ask them, well, what do you think the property is worth? You know, if you didn't have me here to tell you, and you had to take a guess, if you're going to put it on the market today and you had to make your best guess of what do you think the property is worth, what would you say it is? And you don't want to just stop there just asking that one question. You want to follow that up with why. What is it that's making you come up with that number? So I could better understand the homeowner's perspective. See what I did there? The homeowner's perspective. It doesn't matter how perfect or fantastic or great I am as a real estate professional. I'll never have that homeowner's perspective like the actual homeowner has. And now all of a sudden, they realize that them providing us this information is actually going to help us, which it actually is. It's going to help us better understand why they think the value is the way it is and what those misconceptions might be. Because if they say, oh, well, you know, I think this house is worth $475,000. And if we just go, oh, $475, no, it's more like $300,000. Good try, though. That's not going to go over very well. So they say $475,000. Oh, well, okay, $475. All right. And so I could better understand you and the homeowner's perspective. What is it about the property that you think would justify the $475,000? What is it what's making you come up with that number? And if they say, oh, I don't know, I just kind of picked it out of my head. Well, I mean, what is it? What about it? What are some of the upgrades in here? What do you think? Because that $475, I mean, that is a little premium for this area. Not saying it won't sell for that much money, but it is, I would say, on the high end. So what do you think? What is it maybe that I'm not seeing here that I don't know about that might contribute some value? And we're just trying to get a conversation going so they could start giving us information. Because they might tell us, oh, well, you know, we put in the pool back here, and when we put it in, the pool builder told us we'd get $100,000 back for it. Ah, those pool builders. It's a very nice pool. I don't know if we can get anybody to pay $100,000 more for it, though. See how I did that right there? Didn't insult them. I didn't try to... And I even complimented their pool. Yeah, it's a very nice pool. It's a beautiful pool. But I don't know if we're going to be able to get somebody to pay $100,000. It's not that I don't think it's worth that much money. I don't think we get somebody to pay that. See, it's not me. I'm just the messenger. That's really all we are. We're not the one buying or selling it. We're just the messenger between the buyers and the sellers. That's what we do in real estate. And so this is how we start breaking this down so they don't shoot themselves in the foot. Because if they don't know how to shoot the gun, they might shoot themselves in the foot. We're the professional. We're the expert. We're going to say, okay, well, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Let's not point the gun at our foot. Let's not do that. So maybe we start breaking this down here, and then we maybe start bringing up comps. And if they're really far off with the price, this is going to give you the opportunity now to break that down with them, to help them better understand why they're going to be shooting themselves in the foot. They're going to be making this a lot more difficult for themselves if they price the property too high. So that's how we kind of have that conversation here. But let's just go and wrap this up with the reason why you want to really price a property lower rather than pricing higher. So going back to our buyer shoes again, let's say that they're just really hard on doing the $475,000 or whatever overinflated price it is that they want to do. Well, pretty much all listing generation, listing presentation, packet, software, whatever it is that you use to generate a CMA or anything like that will typically have one of these graphs in it. And what these graphs usually look like is this. And this is time. This is maybe day 1. Here's day 30. And this is high dollar. This is low dollar. As time goes on, the likelihood to sell your property for top dollar decreases. Why does it decrease? Well, when we just list a property, so when we first list a property for sale, and we could also look at this as the number of eyeballs that we get on the property. Number of people it is that we get looking at it. That's always going to be the greatest when the property is first listed, because an email is going to go out. And that email is going to say, just listed. Whether it's Zillow, Realtor.com, and not just emails, maybe SMS, text message notifications, maybe a push notification from an app. People are getting notified that, hey, this is an alert. There's a new property just hit the market. So that alert goes out here, and then again, these people are going to immediately judge your property based number 1 on the photo and based number 2 on the price. And when I say the photo, again, they're looking at that first photo to decide if they want to waste their time looking at the rest of the photos. Or if maybe it's potentially something they are interested in and they do want to see those next photos. But that's where you're going to get the largest amount of traffic. Because what's going to happen is there's a bunch of these people here that are just going to write off the property. They're going to say, oh, no, that's not for us. And so then over time, there might be some people that watch it and some new people that come across it, but you're not going to be able to match that same initial exposure that you get when the property is first listed. You could do a price reduction. That's what you always want to try to do if it's not sold within so many days, depending on how fast properties are selling in your market, depending on how much of a buyer's or seller's market it is. You should have an expectation that a property goes under contract, maybe in just a week, maybe in 2 weeks, maybe in a month. You want to look at what's typical in your market. How fast are properties going under contract? Because if your property is taking longer to go under contract than the average property in the market, that usually means that it's one of those two things, that they don't like the photos and they don't like the price. Maybe one of each, maybe one of the other, maybe a little bit of both, who knows? So maybe we do this price reduction. And price reductions actually will spike the views. It'll help you spike the eyeballs. They will fade off again unless you do another price reduction to try to spike it again. But again, this is a lot less than up here. Because when it's just listed, you got to get it before it's gone. Get it before it's gone because it's just listed. It just went on the market. It's probably going to be gone tomorrow. Maybe it won't be, I don't know. But you better make an offer now because it was just listed. Whereas, yeah, we reduced the price. It's been on the market for like a month and nobody wants to buy it, so we dropped the price. There's nothing really wrong with it. I promise. Notice how you're almost now having to beg people to take that property, to take interest in the property when you have to do price reductions. So understanding what's going on in the buyer's head, understanding, I don't want to call the buyer the enemy, but the opposition, the opposing party, they want the opposite of what we want. The seller wants the highest price, the buyer wants the lowest price. So they are the opposing party. They are going to want to try to get the lowest price, and they're going to have a lot more justification to get a lower price if you're already having to reduce the price. Whereas if you price the property more competitively from the get-go, you're going to get even more attention. Why? Because people are going to think it's a deal. And look, here's the secret that you've got to let sellers in on. Even if you advertise the property for X amount of dollars, that doesn't mean you have to accept an offer. You are under no obligation to accept any offers whatsoever. You could get $1 million full price, above asking price offers on this property, and refuse every single one of them just because you want to. That decision is still totally up to you. All it is that I'm doing is just marketing and trying to get people to make those offers, to you. And if we price it lower from the beginning, we're going to get more attention on the property. People are going to think it's a deal, so they're going to want to make an offer. And when they make an offer, they're already bought into it. They're already sold on the property, so much so that they threw money at the property. They're saying, yes, I'll buy this property. And if we have multiple people doing that, that's how we get a bidding war, and that's how we could sell the property above the listing price. And this is very likely to occur and happens actually quite frequently, especially right now with as much of a seller's market as that we're in. There's a lot of this going on, and a seller's market means that there's fewer homes available for sale than there are buyers, so that means there's more buyers. And when there's more buyers, that creates more opportunity to have this bidding war. Now, if it's more of a buyer's market where there's a lot of homes on the market for sale, you still want to lower your price more, but you're a lot less likely that you're going to have that bidding war bidding the price up, especially if there's a lot of properties available. So you have to take into account the marketing conditions and all this as well, so that way, again, you could tell the full story to your client, because that's what you're here to do. You're here to be the professional and give them the full story, not the sensational headlines that their friends or family have told them about selling real estate, or what the real estate market is right now, or who they should use, or what they should do, or anything like that. We're here to be the calm, cool, collected professional, to help them understand how we can help them achieve their real estate goals and dreams, whatever it is that they are. And we could not just help them achieve it, but help them understand how to achieve it. That's really the crucial first step. If you could do that, if you could help people in simple terms understand what is very complicated, you will be fantastic at real estate, because that is our job. Taking this complicated, convoluted, multi-step process and making it simple. And look, it's not that hard to do, because it's pretty much the same process for everyone, with a few minor differences. So that's our role to play. And we're doing a disservice to our client if we don't fully inform them of everything they need to know to appropriately market their property. If they're on the same page with us with the listing price, we don't have to spend all this time explaining to them why. But if they don't agree with us on listing the property at a lower price, and it's not that we give them the price and then we try to back that up, we figure out from them what they think it's worth, and we're using that information to help them better understand what the property is really worth, and then giving our opinion of value on the property. And when we're doing that, you're much more likely to win them over, not just on the listing, but also on that listing price as well. Because if you explain the strategy, again, in not complex and nice simple terms, help them understand why the buyer would be much more incentivized to make an offer on a slightly lower price as opposed to a higher price. And if you could do that, you'll get more sellers than you know what to do with. So look, that's about all the time it is we've got for today. If you want to start your real estate career, take your real estate business to the next level, whatever the case may be, we've got the courses to get your real estate license, renew the license, start your own brokerage. Call us up, 813-333-2676, or check us out online at tampaschool.com. That's 813-333-2676 or tampaschool.com. That's all the time we've got for today. I'll see you guys next week.
The most powerful tool to study for your real estate exam is the Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate. We've used our years of experience in preparing students for the Florida real estate exam to bring you the most powerful exam study tool available. In the Question Simulator, you'll be able to go directly to a particular unit so you can focus on the sections where you need the most practice. We have also included the percentages of each unit so you know which units are the most important for your real estate exam. Every question will immediately give you detailed feedback, which is almost always more important than the question or the answer themselves. After completing all the questions in a particular unit, you can go through question by question and review any that you've gotten wrong. You could also print out a report at the end of each quiz. The Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate is 100% mobile compatible, so you can practice with test questions anywhere you have your phone with you. Enroll now at questionsimulator.com and get ready to pass your exam.
state of real estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. Grow your real estate business.